Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming, and this is Chandler. This is our second in the series of reviews of different series we think that you should probably check out. This one is Invincible, Volumes 1 and 2. The reason that we're doing both of these is if you only read Volume 1, you may not fully get the hook of the series. I said that to you before you read it, and
right.
Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree too. The first volume is definitely, it's a good, nice story on its own. It's the first 4 issues, but the second one really, the first one builds a good story and a good potential universe, but the second one really gives you a reason to stay locked into that universe.
Yeah, it gives you a really good hook. We'll get to that in a couple minutes here, though. One of the things I also wanted to point out, Chandler didn't recognize this at first, probably because he's not old enough to recognize some of the series. Each one of the volumes is named after a different TV series. So volume number 1 is called Family Matters, and volume number 2 is called 8 is Enough. And that continues throughout the series of graphic novels. The way I always explain this series is it's Superman with Peter Parker's problems. He's dealing with high school, all the things that come with it, trying to fit in. And now he has the added problem of having superpowers, which separates him from
from
his
the rest of it.
classmates.
He's trying to just fit in and be a normal kid, but that problem. So I would agree that's a pretty good description of it.
And adding to that, his dad is also one of the premier superheroes of the world.
Omni-Man.
Yep. So he has to deal with the pressure of having this dad that's kind of like everyone looks up to. So we're going to go issue by issue on this one, just like we did with the Immortal Hulk. We're going to try and not just spoil the big stuff.
Mild spoilers.
Yes. So issue number 1, in this one, Mark develops his powers. Mm-hmm. You kind of see his place in the high school universe here. He's not quite popular, but he's also not unpopular.
Right, he's just kind of middle of the road, just kind of fits in, just blurs in. Nobody really pays much attention. Yeah, and as he develops his powers, his dad is very proud of him because he's like, oh, you take after me, sort of thing. Going into the family business.
Exactly. They introduce him to the suit maker for the superheroes also.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. I knew Marvel has a similar character to that.
Yeah, so the book reminds me a lot of Incredibles, where you got, except for, Mom doesn't have superpowers. That's sort of the only difference, but it's a family superheroes. They got the outfit maker, just like Incredibles has. Not quite the same personality, but it's got a lot of those things. So if you're familiar with Incredibles, this might also be a kind of cool tie-in point where it's a family of superheroes and just their stuff that would maybe blow everyone else's mind just kind of rolls off of Mom and Dad's shoulders because they're so used to it over the years.
Yes. Definitely, if you like Incredibles, I think you'll enjoy this. He also encounters a school bully. It's just a brief couple of pages or whatever,
right.
But kind of exposing as to where his morality sort of lies.
Yeah, he's picking on another kid and it bothers him, and he tries to just talk him away or whatever, but the guy wants to get a little physical, so he, without revealing too much, not trying to really have superpowers, just kind of shoves him pretty good into the lockers and gets him to knock it off.
Exactly. I think the first issue kind of demonstrates what the series is really about, which is it's not so much about superheroes, it's more about how he deals with where his placement in the world. Not just high school, but also developing, like I said, these superpowers. And
right.
It's definitely more personal than it is a Superman comic.
Right. It's definitely a story about Mark and his, also a lot of superhero stuff, obviously, because he has all these powers, but it's definitely a story about Mark and how he goes through life and dealing with all this.
So for those of you who don't know, the writer of the series is Robert Kirkman, who also writes Walking Dead. So it kind of is like that to me. Zombies are in Walking Dead, but they're not really the focus. It's more about the relationships.
It's about the people. It's not about the zombies.
And it's kind of like what this is also. It's
about the people. It's not about the superheroes.
Yes.
Right? There are no zombies so far, but I mean,
yes.
I don't know. There's 144 issues, so maybe, but it's not a zombie book.
So then issue number 2, he foils a robbery.
Mm-hmm.
The guy is stealing from a toy store. He's stealing video game cartridges or video game systems.
Right.
Which obviously Mark is confused about that at that point because he's like, "Why are you stealing?"
Right. Big hulking guy. Why do you want these little tiny things? And then the teen team shows up to kind of do their job, not knowing because Mark's kind of vigilanteing right now, where Dad knows about it and the suit maker knows about it, but he's not exactly fully. He's still working out, suit, name, all that stuff. So he's not exactly coming up to any reporters or press and being like, "Here I am, I'm so," he's still working out the kinks a little bit. So it's kind of a accidental bump in with this teen superhero team.
Now, I do forget, he came up with his name in the first issue.
He did. It
at
was,
the end of
yes,
it, right?
at the end of it, he came up with it. So he's got a name and he's fleshing it out, but he's still, as Dad says, he's still working out the kinks a little bit. He's only been doing it for a month or so.
We also got a little bit of backstory at the beginning of it about his dad, about
Mm-hmm.
why he came to the planet, how they were trying to develop different worlds' potential. They scouted different places. The Earth was deemed not a place that they wanted to develop.
But Dad decided he wanted to go anyway because he saw potential, and then he became kind of the savior of the Earth, our superhero Omni-Man and everything. Obviously others have followed suit since then. There's a couple other organizations, but he seems to be the number one superhero in the game.
And then after the teen team thing, the next day he realized, Mark, Invincible, realizes he goes to school with Adam Eve, which I think is a pretty cool subtext to it. Like, you don't necessarily realize the people that you go to school with.
Right, sure, yeah, you could be sitting next, and they even mention that you could be sitting in class with somebody for, months at a time and never know they're there until some, accidental, coincidental thing happens.
And let's see, then there was also the mall attack in this one, because there were the kids that were being kidnapped, and they were having bombs strapped, well, not strapped to them, they were actually being internally
turned into them, kind of.
Internally attached to them. They were kidnapping the kids that were kind of annoying, according to Mark. At least the kids that he wasn't.
At least they weren't, like, he's like, I hate to say it, but they're not if people had to go missing from the school, it's not the worst thing that these people were missing. Kind of the jerks, the bullies, the mean kids are kind of the one that seem to be disappearing for unknown reasons.
Yes. Which led into issue number 3, which is where he was training with his dad. And then another one of the bomb kids shows up. Or no, the aliens show up. The aliens show up from the other dimension.
Yes, and they fight. There is a bomb in that one as well, almost because that's kind of the overlying arch of the story is what's going on with that. It's kind of Mark's first caper, and it deals directly with high school, but him and Dad are kind of just, trying to, go on patrol together and everything, which is, they can't talk about, like, this is fun, I'm doing this with my kid, it's a nice father-dad bonding thing, and then, aliens strike as they do, and there's a giant portal that opens up, and they have to go off, wherever.
They disappear, and you think it's
fight,
over.
Yeah, and fight these seemingly endless stream of aliens coming out of this portal.
And then they end up showing back up at the end of the issue and kidnapping Omni-Man, which is, again, for the humor in the series is one of the key things. So when he goes home and he tells his mom, she's more like, okay, well, what do you want for dinner?
Yeah, like I think we're having pork chops. Because even for Mark's a little bit concerned, but even his reaction, I think, when it happened was just like, oh man, like,
oh, my first day,
dang it, like, yeah, I lost my dad, like, first day on the job with him. But it is very funny in that and that sort of, like I say, Incredibles term, where it's like, they're so used to dealing with this stuff that just so much like of a reaction that we would have for something that happened, that's devastating. Mom just rolls off her shoulder, whatever, because she's been dealing with it for 20 plus years.
Exactly. She knows the drill at this point. Whereas Mark is, like I said, maybe a week into his superheroing at this point.
And she's the unsung hero of the book.
Yes.
Mom's a great character.
Then we move on to, well, again, like you said, the kids still being turned into bombs, kind of getting more backstory on that. And then with issue 4...
That's when the culprit is revealed.
Yes.
At the end there through, again, because Mark and Eve have class together and they're trying to do their own version of, like, on the street Batman detective work and try to figure out what's happening. And then, of course... one of the other members of the teen team, the robot, just calls him up and tells him everything. Because they're like, we don't know what to do, there's no clues. And he's like, oh yeah, I figured it all out. Go to this address, this is where the person is. This
is where Mark really brings up to Adam Eve also that he doesn't feel bad that these kids are being kidnapped.
Yeah, and he feels bad that he doesn't necessarily feel bad, but he again reiterates, it's kind of like, it's kind of funny how it's, kids that, we don't like because they're awful to everyone, like...
And you also get a little bit more of the high school drama in this one, and that rumors start flying about Adam, Eve, and Mark.
Right, because they start talking more just because they are on a secret superhero team by fighting at night.
Something in common.
They become more of a friendship, but obviously it's high school, so anytime a guy and a girl are spending a lot of time together, everyone assumes, and there's an embarrassing moment where they get called out in class for being lovebirds.
Or by their parents.
And their parents, and they just keep telling everybody, like, we're just friends, like, why are you guys doing this? But it's definitely written well. It's hard, I think, for adults to write from a child or even a teenager's perspective, but I think Kirkman does a really good job here. You know, it's easy to be a good writer, but it's hard to write in certain like niche genres, and I think a lot of people struggle with that, where they think they can write from a kid's perspective, but you know, somebody who's not that far removed from high school, like I can always read right through that and go, okay, well that would never happen, or that's not realistic. But a lot of what he's writing is stuff that does happen every day, and it feels very genuine and real.
I always think it's a mistake of writers when they try and mimic the cadence and stuff of a teenager. I think it's better to write them as if they were adults, because the emotions and stuff, as long as that's true, that's the meat of the story anyway.
Right.
And Kirkman does a good job of that. He doesn't use, I don't remember him using any slang or anything.
No, he does. Yeah, he doesn't try to, you know, figure it all. What's all the hip lingo that kids are using today, so I can throw it in the book. He kind of sticks away from that.
The other thing is when you use that, it ends up dating your story anyway.
Sure, because if people want to read it 20 years back, you know, and stuff like, you know, when you read Teen Titans from the 80s that I've done, it's like, well, I don't have to look up words because I'm like, I don't even know what that word means anymore. We don't use it anymore.
Well, even like the old 60s Marvel stuff, like if you read that, like, again, the stories are strong, but when they use the slang, it kind of takes you out of it. And I think that's another positive thing. He tends to write them all like from that adult perspective, so they're not used. He's not trying to sound cool.
Yeah, it's not like, well, this is obviously an adult masquerading. It's trying to write it for. I'm trying to be a child again and write this story. Yeah, he sticks away from that, which is a good call. And
at the end of volume 1, the dad returns, and again they act as if nothing really.
Mark gets home and goes, "Any news from Dad?" She goes, "No." Next panel over, Dad comes out and like, I'm really hungry, what's for dinner? And she's like, okay, I'll be ready in 5 minutes. You know, like he's been gone for, I don't know, a week.
Well, he said 18 years or whatever.
He's been, his, for whatever dimension he was in, he was gone for, you know, months and months and months, and it was still at least a couple days here, but again, just no big deal, just shaves his long beard he's growing and comes to the dinner table and not an eye is batted.
Back to business as usual.
Yep.
And that concludes volume 1, which brings us to volume 2, which is called 8 is Enough. This one is pretty funny because it starts with the Alan the alien.
Yes, it's a good character.
So his dad has been fighting Alan for, I think, like they said 15 years or something, like 20 years.
I think it's every 3 years for like at least 15 years, something. Like he comes and essentially he says his job is, it's actually really funny because he says like he's on a phone call, so he's like, I can't talk real quick, there's an alien coming, it's probably the strongest guy you ever faced, but I think you can handle it, you're pretty strong, like whatever. And he's like, you know, got a million questions. He's like, I can't talk, I'm literally in the battle right now, but I gotta go by. And so he goes, okay, I don't know. So he flies up, and of course he's like, well, it's in space, I can't breathe in space. And Dad's like, I can hold my breath for a week. You can obviously hold your breath for a couple hours, like you're fine. And like he's like, okay, well maybe I'm not, I hope I am. And so he goes up there and he's holding his breath, and there's a lot of cool panels where again, you know, he's still 17, 18, he's just looking around like, this is awesome, I'm in outer space.
The double page spread where he looks at Earth after the fight is probably one of my favorite ones, because he realizes the enormity of his powers and the position that he's in.
Yeah, just standing on the moon looking at Earth, and he's just like, cool, like, you know, this is a really awesome thing. But yeah, so come to find out, Dad's just there's been a misunderstanding with the alien for about 15 years that Mark finally figured out by realizing, why are we doing this?
I love that the mom reprimands the dad at the end.
Yes.
Like, you never thought to talk to this guy.
Right. You know, and he's like, well, how was I supposed to know? And she's like, well, Mark knew. And it's, you know, again, good mom and dad, you know, barbs, just like in any normal family.
That was pretty much the entirety of issue 5. It was very funny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was kind of just a standalone little story about mainly focusing on that alien and the misunderstanding. But it was very funny. And
then issue 6 is a callback to something that happened in issue 1. I know you said you missed it at first.
Yeah, I did miss it at first until you pointed it out, but I went back and sure enough.
So in issue number 1, Mark throws a trash bag in the sky, and then it lands in issue 6. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah. If you're not really paying attention to it, it's very easy for it to go past you.
And it's even funnier because that was kind of the moment he realized he had superpowers. He was just angry, you know, like we all do, throw the trash in the dumpster after work at the end of the night, and he goes to throw it, and it just keeps going and going for forever. And then that's when he's like, yes, like I do have my dad's superpowers.
Issue number 6 is also pretty cool because him and his friend are going looking at colleges at this one. Mm-hmm. So again, it brings you back to this whole personal relationship that he has with these different characters. And this bad guy attacks the college. I don't remember why. I don't even know whether it was exactly
I don't
stated.
think it was specified. It was just he just went on a rampage through there, and he, of course, normal superhero problems like, oh, there's my friend, like, oh, secret identity, like, you go run, like, I'm gonna find help, and then, of course, and I think the good thing that he adds into it that I think a lot of writers are doing more now, where like if you're really close with somebody, you can't keep something like that a terrible secret. So he's literally like, oh, thank goodness I found you, and he's like, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, what I don't, what do you mean? And he's like, and it's, when you know somebody, it's very hard to keep that kind of thing a secret.
Yes.
And he figures it out right away.
His friend's very, very excited about it.
Yes. Oh, I mean, that'd be the coolest thing in the world. Your best friend had superpowers. So it's, he's like, and then he's like, don't worry, like, I'm not gonna tell anybody. He's like, it's just awesome.
And then he talks about it all the time.
Yes,
and Mark
because it's exciting, and he can't, so they're in school, and he's like, oh man, but he's like, shut up, and he's like, oh right, sorry, the superhero thing, and he's like, no, just don't talk about it here. Like, we can talk about whatever you want in private. Stop doing that.
The relationship between those two really developed in this one, because like he wasn't really in.
He was in the first. Definitely the first issue, and then a little bit here and there, but because of all the other things going on, and mainly trying to focus on Dad and the superpowers. Yes, establishing other things. He was sort of background-ish, but you kind of realize in this one that they are good friends, and that there is a good bond there. And he's also, it seems like a good, interesting character on his own right. Has definitely his own scruples and personality that he asserts pretty dominantly.
And it's also during this issue that Adam Eve finds out that her boyfriend has a secret of his own.
Yes. Rexplode is hiding things.
Apparently the teen team is very, very close.
Yes. We get along with each other very well.
So she finds out about it, and she goes and talks to Mark. I think Mark in issue 8 about that, though. I think is when.
Yeah, I believe so.
In issue 8, she comes over, starts talking to Mark about it, and this is when the conversation, I believe, with the mom takes place.
Because it's again one of those like classic misunderstandings where door opens and she's devastated, she's crying, but of course
she's laying in his lap.
Mom turns around, they're facing the back, turn around, and he's immediately like, no, like, I know what you're thinking, and it isn't that, and she's like, living room, you two now. And
well, you said your favorite part was what she said then.
Yeah, because she made it's this it's the same speech that you would always hear in that kind of situation, like like, I can't, you guys need to be careful, like, I can't be here all the time. And then she's like, especially with you two, you could fly off to an island for somewhere for an hour and I'd never even know about it. So it's every mom's like worst fear added with the fact that the superpowers could make them hide everything even more, even though again they're trying to be like, we're just friends, please stop saying this.
So the funny thing is, like, he could be killed out in these fights that he's having.
Right, doesn't care, but there's a girl in his bedroom and mom's mom is when that happened. Issue 7 is also, they've been talking about the Global Force, like, super team for a
Guardians
long time.
Of the Globe.
Yeah, that it's reminiscent of Justice League and all, and it's funny in this book you see a lot of the like clear like mirrorings of like Marvel and
the
DC
analogs.
characters, and it's funny, it's played I think in respect and not not trying to slander anything, but it's so then you realize just how similar they are to specifically Justice League in issue 7, because it starts off with like, our hero needs rest, and so Mark's just sleeping, and so it goes, well, he's sleeping, so let's talk about this super team, and it talks about every single one, and every single one is literally a slightly different variation of the Justice League. They have like you said, a Batman character, a Wonder Woman, like all the stuff, almost the exact same powers, just slightly different name and different thing, and it really builds that up. All these different little tying in all these characters about their team and who they are and their powers, which you find out is pretty hilariously, it's very similar to Justice League, culminates in they've all been called to their Watchtower version of it for a meeting, and everybody goes, well, I didn't call the meeting, did you call the meeting? Power cuts, and then boom, 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 gone.
Death and destruction.
And a big
carnage. Lots of carnage.
Big spoiler that we won't reveal about it, and it doesn't cut to the chase of who did it. It's a big spoiler of this is the murderer, like, right away. You don't have to figure out or beat to the chase, and that's how that issue ends. Is this is the person that did it.
And that's the point where I think most people will be hooked.
Yes, it's a very interesting, not like it is a left turn out of nowhere, not a bad left turn, but definitely one where, whoa, didn't see that coming, what's this about? And I have to read more, I have to figure out what's going on with this.
I've read a little bit further than you, so I'm not going to spoil where that goes.
Right.
But it definitely is, like I said, I think the hook of the series. Again, everything leading up to that is really, really good. But once you get there, you're like, oh my god, my god.
It's like absolute pure like substance and interesting in detail. Not, again, like we said, every other issue has been really fun and awesome, and I think it's really hard to create a new superhero in a genre that has so many great characters and so many people have attempted and failed, even in the big two, and this is an independent, even in Marvel and DC, new characters don't usually work very well, but I think Kirkman's done a really good job of setting up this new character in a very fun, interesting way, and with this issue, then giving it a lot of substance and like not only like this is fun, I want to read this, but like I have to read this, I have to know what's going to happen next.
Definitely. And then issue 8 is the inevitable funeral issue.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if heroes die, you have to have a funeral.
Yes, it's a very big deal. Press coverage, all the other superheroes come out with their suit and tie and still wearing masks, though, of course, because, secret identities.
Oh, we forgot to mention the Rorschach-like character. So not only was it the Justice League...
There's like I said, and if you look at the funeral, in which I did, there's different characters where you can just see, and you're pointing out, and you're like, oh, I know who that's supposed to be, I know who that... And it's very funny to see that, but of course Rorschach, being the detective that he is investigating, because it's obviously a huge deal when your biggest team of superheroes just gets wiped out in one night, all in the same room.
Exactly. And then the two supervillains that were involved in the robbery of the video game system actually show up to the funeral also.
To pay their respects.
They said he was a worthy adversary.
Yes.
They wanted to be there for...
And of course, there's, and Mark even asks, is that normal? And one of the guys like, yeah, he's like, hopefully they stay calm, but it's not uncommon for somebody to come up and try to trash the funeral. One
of the Guardians of the Globe was no longer a member because he had lost his powers. So they thought that he had initially committed the murder.
The suit maker was trying to make him a suit to re-up it, and they didn't know that has he become unstable, has he gone mad because he's lost his powers, because the suit went missing, and that was their biggest fear, is that one of their own turned and betrayed them and murdered all of them.
And then the butler shows up because the butler always did it.
Right. And the butler stole the suit, which is interesting. The butler half did it. He stole the suit, and he does come to the funeral and to
exact his revenge.
Yes. The murderer of the League is still at large.
Yes. And then at the end, we have a couple of kids digging up the grave because they had read an internet rumor. I think it was the internet that they said.
He read somewhere on there that if you cut open this league's version of Superman, if you cut open his skull, you cut open his head, you drink from his skull, you get superpowers and immortality. And even the other one makes the point like, he's not a skull though. He's only been dead for like 3 days. Like, I don't want to do this. And the other guy's like, shut up, we're doing it. Like, are you kidding me? And then, of course, 2 guys stumble while they've already, dug this huge hole, and they're like, we've hit it. Bad guys stumble up like, oh, thank you so much. This would have been so much harder had you not dug this hole for us.
Exactly. So that covers the first 2 volumes. Since I've already read it before, and I obviously did continue, is this one that you would...
I would it's one of those ones where, as I said, I immediately asked you, like, how many is this? It's not one of those where, sometimes you'll read a series and you go, well, this was all right. How many? Oh, there's only like 12, 15 issues. I might as well just read the rest of it. This is like, how many is there? That's not enough. Why is there only that many? Just right from the first 8 issues, it's something you want to keep reading and dive into.
But that's also a good point. So those who don't like these long, never-ending stories, this has a definitive close. Like he said, it's 144 issues. Definitely goes through the progression of the characters. Things change for these characters over the course of the series. I won't go too deep into that. Like I said, I don't want to spoil anything. These are more about trying to make sure you guys can find books that you may not have necessarily tried if we hadn't done these videos.
Or in my case, where I've absolutely heard of the book. It's one of, independents don't get as much publicity as Marvel and DC, but this is one of those ones that I'd heard talked about a lot over the years, and between you and just on the internet, other people, and only good things. And it's one of those things where you're like, if everybody's praising it, like, oh, is it actually as good as everyone says? Has it come through there? But so far from what I've read, it is as good as everyone says, and it definitely it grabs you and makes you want to keep reading more.
And if you pay attention, there's a lot of jokes hidden in the background and stuff. The name of their school is Reginald Vell Johnson High School, which is one of the stars of Family Matters. Again, like, he ties things into like pop culture pretty often. And I will say in closing that this is a book that I've always liked more than Walking Dead. Not that Walking Dead is bad. I feel like there's more of a hook to this one. There's more drive to it. I don't know whether you've ever read Walking Dead or not.
I've read some of it. Definitely watched the TV series. I'm definitely very familiar with it.
For me, and I mean, it's not necessarily. It's just not. I don't like how repetitive that Walking Dead can get sometimes. Like they find this big bad guy. They think everything. Well, first they think everything's great, and then they find out the person there is a bad guy, and then it's rinse and like.
And at the end of the day, there's just millions and millions of zombies, and they'll never be safe. But I think, and like when John says that, it's definitely not like a, oh yeah, The Walking Dead's bad. It's no, The Walking Dead's that good, and this book is still better.
Exactly.
It just really shows how well this is. Well, how well Robert Kirkman is a great writer, an established writer, and between these two, I think that would be a good enough resume to sail out on. But he's still doing some stuff that's getting pretty good praise. So he's definitely a really big talent in the industry, and guys like that, that we need in the comic book industry to keep people coming back for more. And so it just shows how good this book is. If not many people can say, yeah, I write The Walking Dead and that might be my second best thing, that's pretty crazy to say that, but it may in fact be true.
I think they're actually working on a cartoon for the series also.
Oh, that would be
I'm
great.
pretty sure.
I love that.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video series. We haven't decided on which one we're going to... Well, actually, I think we decided on Skyward next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to review Skyward next week.
Another independent. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be reading it.
So hopefully you enjoyed this video of Why Aren't You Reading? Starring Invincible.